Okay, let's talk about something we all feel, but almost never ever admit to: envy. But here's a thought. What if everything we've been told about it, that it's toxic, that it's shameful, a sign of weakness, is just completely wrong? What if envy is actually a powerful, high-resolution signal pointing you directly toward your own unmapped potential?
You know this feeling. I mean, we all do, right? You're just scrolling through your feed, minding your own business, and then bam! You see a post about someone else's big win. And it hits you, that sharp, cold constriction in your chest. It's like a punch to the gut. And that little voice in your head starts whispering that you're behind. It's immediate, it's visceral, and it is deeply uncomfortable.
So why does it feel so bad, so shameful? Well, it's because for our entire lives, we've been fed a very specific and, frankly, a very unhelpful story about what that feeling means. We've literally been taught to see it as a fundamental flaw in our character.
I mean, just think about the labels. It's called one of the 7 deadly sins. It's a sign you're insecure, that you're toxic, that you lack an abundance mindset, or worse, that you're just a small person. With messaging like that, is it any wonder we try to just bury this feeling the second it shows up?
All right, you know what? Let's just throw that old story in the trash. We are going to completely reframe this right now, because that feeling isn't a character flaw. It's a biological signal. It's a piece of high-resolution data about your own untapped potential.
And this, right here, is the most crucial point. This is the core idea of this entire explainer. You are not a toxic person for feeling envy. You are a person with a highly calibrated internal guidance system, and it is sending you an urgent, high-resolution signal.
So what is this signal exactly? Well, the source material calls it a prediction error. Think of your brain as this incredible 8K hardware. It's just detected a gap. But here is the key. The gap isn't between you and that other person. The gap is between where you are right now and where your brain knows you are truly capable of being.
Now, let's get into the neuroscience behind this, because this is fascinating. The reason envy feels like a physical punch is because to your brain, it is a physical sensation. It's a form of social pain, and it's processed in the anterior cingulate cortex, the exact same part of the brain that processes physical pain. Your body is using the language it knows best, pain, to scream, hey, pay attention. This is really, really important.
And this is brilliant because it illustrates the choice we have when that signal fires. It can curdle into toxic envy, or it can transform into productive emulation. And the single deciding factor? It's what this slide calls perceived agency. It all comes down to the story you tell yourself. Is it, I can't have that, which just leads to resentment, or is it, wait a minute, that is possible for me, which leads to action? And here's the thing, this signal is incredibly precise. You don't get jealous of Jeff Bezos or some random lottery winner, do you? No. You feel it when a peer, someone in your circle, publishes the exact kind of book you were too busy to write. It's a no bullshit indicator because it only activates for things that are truly within your orbit of potential. It's pointing to your true north.
So to actually use this data, you have to stop focusing on the person and start acting like a detective. Look at the components. The next time you feel that sting, ask yourself this question. What specific component, or node, as the source calls it, of their life is my brain highlighting? Is it the money, or is it the freedom the money buys? Is it the finished product, or the discipline it took to get there? You got to get granular.
Okay, so let's see how we can build this from just a cool theory into a practical tool. It's time to turn that green-eyed monster into a high-speed GPS. We can actually convert that awful feeling of resentment into a concrete map for action using what the source material calls the GPS protocol.
And here it is, the 4-step framework. Step 1, label the specific node, not the person. Get specific. Step 2, conduct an agency audit to see if you really, truly want what it takes to get there. Step 3, deconstruct their success. Find the systems behind it. And 4, and this is the most critical step of all, take a 5% action. Build a tiny bridge from where you are to where you want to go.
Let's just pause on step 2 for a second, because this is such a powerful filter. You know, sometimes we envy the result, the promotion, the finished novel, but we have absolutely zero desire to do the actual work. The lonely hours, the tedious revisions, the late nights. This question helps you weed out the false positives. If you don't actually want the process, you can let the envy go. It's not your signal to follow. And this is why step 4 is basically the magic bullet. The moment you take one small, concrete action, sending that one email, writing just one paragraph, researching one course, that toxic feeling of resentment just dissolves. Why? Because you've shifted your identity from being a passive, resentful observer to being an active agent in your own life. Motion really is the antidote. You know, when you start using envy this way, your entire identity begins to shift. You stop being a victim of your emotions, feeling bitter about other people's success. You become an architect, actively using their path as a potential blueprint for building your own.
And this might be the most empowering reframe of all. Someone else's success is not a threat. It is not a sign that you are failing. It is a proof of concept. It's cold, hard data showing you that the thing you want is actually achievable in the real world. They've just lit up one possible path for you.
So the final call to action here is really simple, but it's incredibly powerful. That hunger you feel, that sting of envy, it isn't something to be ashamed of. It's your internal compass begging for attention. It's time to stop apologizing for it and start using it to be the architect of your own direction. And that is the final thought I want to leave you with. The next time, and there will be a next time, that you feel that familiar pang of envy, don't push it away. Don't shame yourself. Just listen. Ask yourself, what is my own potential trying to show me right now? What signal am I going to choose to follow?
You know the feeling. You're just scrolling through your feed, and then bam, there it is. Appears big announcement, their new win. And you feel it, that familiar gut punch, that cold feeling in your chest that just whispers, you're falling behind. Now, we've all been taught to be kind of ashamed of this, right? To call it toxic. But what if it's not a flaw? What if it's actually a feature? Today, we're going to deconstruct envy and turn it into one of the most powerful tools you have.
Okay, so let's just dive right in with the core idea. That feeling, it isn't some moral failing. It's a biological signal. It's high-resolution data that your brain is sending you, trying to tell you something incredibly important about what you're capable of. See, the key is learning how to read the signal instead of just suffering from all the static.
So, first things first, we are going to completely reframe how we understand envy. We're moving away from all that shame and resentment and shifting into a brand new perspective, seeing it for what it is, a map of resources and possibilities that your brain is literally highlighting for you.
Let's just look at this side by side. The old view, right? It frames envy as this green-eyed monster, this ugly character flaw we've got to hide. But the new view? It turns it into a high-speed GPS. It's not a sign that you're insecure, it's an indicator of your true potential. Your brain has simply spotted a prediction error, a gap between where you are and where it knows you could be.
Now, to really get why this signal is so powerful and, let's be honest, often so painful, we've got to look under the hood at our own biology. I mean, why does seeing someone else's success sometimes feel like an actual physical punch? Well, the answer is hardwired right into our brains.
And here's the wild part. It's all because of this one specific spot in your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. Think of it as your brain's alarm system. And here's the thing, it doesn't really know the difference between a stubbed toe and the sting of being rejected or feeling envious. To your brain, that pain is very, very real.
So, the most important thing to get here is that this isn't you just being overly dramatic or sensitive. When that feeling hits, your brain is interpreting the situation as a legitimate threat to your standing, to your survival even. It's firing up these deep, ancient circuits. And this is exactly why it hurts so much. I mean, think about it. Evolutionarily, a drop in social status could literally mean life or death. Less food, less protection, fewer mating opportunities. Our modern brains are still running on that ancient software, so seeing a coworker's promotion can trigger the exact same survival alarm as being cast out of the tribe thousands of years ago.
Okay, so this is where it gets really good, where we can actually start to work with this. If envy is just a signal, that means we can break it down, we can quantify it, and most importantly, we can learn to control its output. And it all boils down to a surprisingly simple formula, which, of course, brings us to the core question, right? What is the dividing line? What separates that corrosive, toxic resentment from a productive, useful drive to emulate someone? How do we flip that switch?
The answer is right here in this equation. The intensity of the envy you feel is basically a product of how similar you feel to the person times how much you want what they have, all divided by one absolutely crucial variable, your perceived agency.
All right, let's just quickly break this down. Similarity is why you probably don't envy Jeff Bezos, but you might feel a sting when your old college roommate gets the exact job you wanted. Desire is that raw hunger for that specific outcome. But the real game changer, the one variable you actually have control over, is perceived agency, your deep down belief that you have what it takes to get there too.
And this, right here, this is the magic switch. When your perceived agency is low, the equation spits out toxic envy. You feel helpless, you feel resentful, but the moment you increase your belief that you can achieve it, that very same signal transforms into productive emulation. It becomes motivation, it becomes a blueprint, it becomes a call to action.
So this one insight lets us make this profound shift in our mindset. It's all about stopping that painful loop of social comparison and starting the process of, well, architectural deconstruction. You go from feeling like a victim of someone else's success to becoming the architect of your own.
This quote just nails the trap we all fall into. Our brains are these incredible, high-performance machines, They're capable of incredibly detailed analysis. But when envy hits, we waste all that processing power trying to find flaws in the other person, instead of using it to dissect the systems and the logic that actually got them that success. So here's the move. You've got to change your focus. The goal isn't that tired old advice to just be happy for them. No, the goal is to be analytical about them. Look past the person and see the underlying structures, the habits, the systems, the resources, the pillars that are holding up their success.
And when you start to do this, everything changes. Their achievement is no longer a threat to your ego. Instead, it just becomes data. It's a proof of concept. It proves that the thing you want is actually achievable. If they did it, that means it's in the realm of possibility.
Okay, let's get down to the practical application. How do you actually use this signal the moment it hits you? This is the 4-step GPS protocol, a clear framework for processing that data and turning that pain into real action. All right, here it is. Number 1, label the node. Get super specific. Is it their money or is it the freedom the money buys? Number 2, the agency audit. Ask yourself honestly, do I want the work that was required for that result or just the shiny outcome? 3, deconstruct to first principles. Break down their success into its smallest parts. And finally, number 4, and this is so key, the 5% action bridge. Do one small thing right now to move toward that goal. Because this right here is the ultimate antidote. The moment you shift from passive, resentful observation into active, forward motion, the toxic quality of envy just starts to dissolve. Agency is the cure. Action is the cure.
So what's the big takeaway from all of this? It's that your deepest desires, even the ones that show up as that sharp, painful sting of envy, they are not something to be ashamed of. They're a compass. They're your internal GPS, pointing you directly towards your own unfulfilled potential. And the only question left is, are you going to keep staring at someone else's destination, or are you finally going to start being the architect of your own path?
You know that feeling, right? That sharp, uncomfortable sting when a friend announces a big success. We're all taught to be ashamed of it, to push it down. But what if it isn't a weakness at all? What if, in this explainer, we could show you that envy is actually your most honest guide, your own secret GPS?
Oh yeah, it's such a familiar feeling. That tightness in your chest, that little voice that whispers you're falling behind. It feels ugly, toxic. But what if that intense emotional hit isn't some deep character flaw? What if it's actually high-resolution data that's pointing you towards something incredibly important?
So that's our goal here today. We're going to stop shaming that green-eyed monster, and instead, we're going to start listening to it. We're going to completely transform that toxic feeling into an actual, usable blueprint for your own growth. Okay, so let's start with the signal itself. The big idea here is that envy isn't just random, chaotic noise. No, it's a very precise biological message that's designed to do one thing: get your full attention.
I mean, think about it for a second. You don't really get jealous of some random person who wins the lottery, do you? No. You get jealous of the person who just wrote the book you've been telling yourself you're too busy to start. This highlights what the source calls a resolution gap. That's the space between where you are right now and where your brain knows you could be. Envy only fires up when it sees someone else bridging a gap that it knows is yours to cross.
And that brings us to the absolute core idea of this whole explainer. That painful, twisting feeling, that isn't you being a bad person. It's a no-bullshit indicator of your true north. It's your own potential screaming to get your attention with a crystal-clear, high-resolution signal. Now, this isn't just some feel-good, fluffy idea.
There is a real, biological reason why envy feels so incredibly powerful. So let's take a look under the hood at the hardware behind this hidden GPS system that's built right into your brain.
This is where it gets absolutely fascinating. There's a part of your brain called the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC. Think of it as your brain's alarm center. And get this, it literally does not distinguish between a broken bone and a bruised ego. So when you see a peer succeed, your brain can register that as a direct threat to your social standing, which, evolutionarily speaking, was a threat to your survival. That's why envy can physically hurt. It really is a punch to the gut.
Believe it or not, we can actually break this feeling down into a kind of formula. The intensity of your envy really depends on three key things: how similar you are to the person, how deeply you want what they have, and this next one is the absolute game changer: your perceived agency. That's your belief in your own ability to go out and get it.
And right here, this is the pivot point. This is everything. If your sense of agency is low, that signal becomes toxic. You feel helpless, and so you start to resent the other person. But if you truly believe you can achieve it, if your agency is high, that exact same signal completely transforms into emulation. It becomes pure inspiration. You see, the emotion itself isn't the problem. It's your sense of agency that decides the outcome.
Okay, so that's the big question, right? How do we actually increase our agency and make that critical shift? Well, we do it by moving from just theory into actual practice. We perform what the source material calls a subconscious audit.
The very next time you feel that sting of envy, this is the question you have to ask yourself. Your personal GPS is officially active. What specific node, what single element of their life is it actually pointing to? Because here's the secret, it's almost never about the person. It's always about what they represent. This table just breaks it down perfectly. You might think you envy their fame, but what your brain is really highlighting is the incredible discipline it took to get there. You think you envy their money, but what you truly desire deep down is the freedom and the autonomy that money buys. Look, the goal isn't to just be happy for them. The goal is to be analytical of them.
And here's where the magic trick happens. When you deconstruct their success into its core parts, the systems, the discipline, the first principles, the emotion itself starts to change. The person just kind of fades away, and what you're left with is a blueprint. The pain of comparison gets totally replaced by the clarity of a plan.
So, this brings us to the actionable stuff, a really simple 4-step protocol to process this data and turn it directly into direction. This is how you build real, tangible agency.
Step 1, label the node. You have to pinpoint the specific thing, not the person. Is it their incredible physique, their booming business, their artistic skill? Step 2, the agency audit. Be brutally honest with yourself. Do you truly want the work that's required to get that result? If the answer is no, it's a false positive. Just let it go. Step 3, deconstruct. Figure out the systems, the habits, the principles they used to get there. And finally, and this is the most important step of all, Step 4, the 5% action. Take one small, immediate, tiny step in that direction right now.
Because that's the whole key. That is the antidote. The very moment you shift from being a passive observer to an active participant, that toxic feeling just dissolves. You literally can't be resentful while you're busy building. Motion is the cure. You know, ultimately, all of this leads to the most powerful shift you can make, a complete and total change in your identity. You stop being a victim, someone things happen to, and you become an architect, someone who makes things happen.
Think about it. A victim sees someone else's success and feels smaller, paralyzed by it. But an architect sees the exact same success and uses it as valuable data. It's a proof of concept that it can be done. They use that signal, that green monster, as a high-resolution map to guide their own construction project.
So please remember this, that uncomfortable, painful emotion is never, ever a sign of your failure. It is a sign of your unactivated potential. It's the future version of you trying to send a signal back to the present you, pointing the way forward.
So the next time you feel that sting, don't run from it. Don't be ashamed of it. I want you to stop, listen, and perform the audit. Treat it like the powerful, accurate compass that it is. And the only question left is, where are you going to let it guide you?
All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about one of the most painful, most human emotions there is, envy. But look, we're not here to talk about how to get rid of it. Nope. In this explainer, we're going to completely transform it. We're going to turn that bitter feeling into an actual, powerful tool for your own growth, using a framework called the GPS protocol. You know that feeling, right? You're just scrolling your feed, minding your own business, or maybe you're out with friends, and someone announces some incredible achievement. And bam, there it is, that cold, tight feeling in your chest, that little voice that whispers you're falling behind. It feels awful, almost toxic. And hey, we have all been there. So we're always taught that envy is this ugly, petty weakness. But what if that's totally wrong? I want you to consider this. What if that sharp sting of envy isn't a flaw at all? What if it's actually a super high-resolution signal from your own mind, pointing directly at something you want? What if it's a language you just haven't learned to speak it? To learn that language, we've got to understand what's happening under the hood. We need to decode the data. So why does envy feel so physically painful? I mean, it really hurts. Well, the answer, it turns out, is literally hardwired into our biology. Okay, so here's the wild biological reality of what you're feeling. When that pang of envy hits, your brain processes it as what's called a limbic threat. Think about it from an evolutionary standpoint. A drop in social status could literally mean a lower chance of survival. So yeah, that's why it's not just some fleeting emotion. It feels like a literal punch to the gut. And the specific part of the brain responsible for this is the anterior cingulate cortex, or the ACC. Just think of it as your brain's central alarm system. It's the same system that fires whether you've broken your arm or you see a friend succeed in a way you wish you had. The pain signal is very, very real. So how can we actually measure this signal? Well, the source material gives us this really interesting formula. The intensity of your envy, it equals how similar the person is to you, times how badly you want what they have. All of that divided by your perceived agency, your actual belief that you can get it too. Now look at that variable on the bottom. That's the key. If your agency is low, that signal intensity just skyrockets into toxic territory. And this right here, this is the whole game. The exact same signal can go in two completely different directions. With low agency, it turns into toxic envy. You start to resent the person. But if you can increase your sense of agency, that exact same signal transforms into emulation. You stop focusing on them and you start focusing on their blueprint. So that's the million-dollar question, right? If increasing agency is the key, how in the world do we actually do it? Well, this is where we pivot from just understanding the problem to actually implementing a solution, the GPS protocol. And just to be clear, this is not some fluffy mindset trick. You should think of the GPS protocol as a systematic data processing framework. It's a tool designed to take that raw, painful signal of envy and convert it into clear, actionable direction. It's how you physically turn that feeling into fuel. The protocol itself is a really clear 4-step process. We're going to walk through every single one, and by the end, you'll have the tools to go from being a passive observer to an active architect of your own life. Okay, here's the whole roadmap at a glance. First, label the node. Then, the agency audit. After that, deconstructive first principles. And finally, the 5% action bridge. This is the path from pain to a concrete plan. So let's break down that first step. The moment, the very second you feel that sting of envy, I want you to stop and literally say this to yourself. My GPS is active. Then ask, what specific node is it pointing to? This is so critical. You're not envious of the person. You are envious of a specific trait or a specific achievement. Is it their discipline, their creative freedom? Get super specific. Label it. Okay, once you've labeled the node, it is time for a serious honesty check. You got to ask yourself this powerful question. Do I truly want the work required to get that result? This is the agency audit. Sometimes we envy the highlight reel, but we'd absolutely hate the behind-the-scenes process. If you don't want the work, guess what? Your GPS is just giving you a false positive. You can now let it go, completely guilt-free. But what if you do want the work? What if the answer is yes? Well, then it's time to engage your analytical brain. You've got to deconstruct their success. Don't just sit there and admire it. Reverse engineer it. What was their system? What resources, we're talking time, money, relationships, did they use? Try to find those few key pillars, what the source calls the golden nodes, that made it all possible. You're hunting for the blueprint, not the finished building. And that brings us to the final and maybe the most important step of all. It's called the 5% action bridge. After all that analysis, you have to take one immediate, tiny action. It doesn't have to be a huge leap. It just has to be 5%. That could be sending one email, doing 5 minutes of research, a single set of reps at the gym, just one tiny step. Because when you take that one tiny action, something profound happens. It's like you cross a threshold. You immediately stop being a passive, resentful observer, and you become an active architect of your own reality. And this is the core principle. I really want this to sink in. The moment you move from just observing to actually doing, the toxic pain of envy, it just evaporates. It literally cannot survive in the face of action. Motion is the antidote to resentment. That little 5% action doesn't just move you forward. It literally changes your emotional state. So the big takeaway here is this, that feeling of hunger, of desire, of envy, it is not something to be ashamed of. It's your internal compass. It's raw energy. The goal isn't to kill it. The goal is to give it direction, to become the architect. So I'll just leave you with this question. Think about the last time you felt that sting. Don't push it away. Acknowledge it. That feeling is your compass. It's not a flaw, it's a guide. So where is it pointing you right now? That signal is showing you exactly where a more intentional life can begin. Your job is just to listen, to deconstruct, and then to take that first small step. Follow your signal.